Hi everybody! Today I have for you a color challenge which is going to be orange 70s themed, and I'm really excited because I haven't done a color challenge in a while, and I am going to be also using my scrap yarn, and I already see the pretty limited amount of orange that I have, but we're gonna make it work, and only if it's necessary will I go and buy some yarn. I have some ideas already. A couple of them are pretty iffy, but I will work on them as I go. The first one I'm thinking of doing is just a basic blanket, but I really wanted to do these types of blankets with the daisy granny squares, and I think that'll be perfect for this challenge, and it's an excuse to finally be able to do it. I was thinking of either doing like a halter top like this or one of those flowy sleeve tops like this. I'm not sure which one I want to do yet, but the one that I'm definitely thinking about doing is a granny square vest. I think that's perfect for a 70s theme. And then the last piece that I'm thinking about, and I'm kind of iffy about it as well, is a newsboy cap. When I looked up like 70s clothes and stuff like that, I saw that there's a lot of caps like this, whether it be the beret or like basically just a beret, but like a visor, I think that's what it's called. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would go into the theme as well. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. Here is all of the yarn that I'm thinking of using for this challenge. Most of them are different shades of orange, and I also brought in some browns, a green, and just some mixtures to see what I can come up with for the colors. Earlier I mentioned that I might do a blanket, and if that's the case, I might actually have to go to the store instead of just using my yarn that I already own. I'm gonna see what I can do before going to the store, and I'm only gonna do that if it's absolutely necessary. But I have a whole bunch of these in the closet. I just only brought out one because I didn't want to like make a mess. But yeah, this is the different colors that I have. I'm also thinking of using maybe a beige and a black, and I don't think I can do anything with the bulky yarn with what I'm planning. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This is the color scheme I'm thinking of going for the vest. I'm not sure in which order just yet, but I know I have at least 3 orangey tones and then 2 other colors that'll blend everything together. I might even add a black, but we'll go ahead and see about that. I'm gonna go ahead and draw out the vest to see what different types of ways I can do the granny squares and see where I want to apply the colors as well. I wanted the vest to be a bit cropped, so I plan to do 4 squares for each of the front panels, then 2 squares for the underarm part, and then 9 squares for the back panel. I thought it would be cool if I used the African flower granny square pattern for each of the squares to make the vest more unique. So I went ahead and worked on the first granny square, but then after doing about 4 rows, I realized it might be too big for what I'm looking for. As I was making the African flower granny square, I was noticing it was getting pretty big, and I was thinking that this might not be the granny square I should do, and so I really quickly did a little sample with the yarn that was next to me of just like the basic granny square, and like this is the granny square complete, and this is the African flower granny square almost done, but it still needs 2 more rows to like square it out. And I feel like what I'm just gonna do is, instead of use the flower, I'm just gonna do the basic granny squares, and then maybe I can use the flower for like, I don't know, maybe combine it with the blanket that I'm gonna do later. Like maybe have 1 daisy and 1 of the African flowers, or I can use this maybe for the newsboy cap, like have a bunch of these and then just make like some decreases and then the cap part of it. Actually, what if I, okay, so I make the front of the granny square vest with these and like the sides with these, but the back could be this, the African flower, and then I just build up on it until it's wide enough to fit my back, and then I just put like double crochets or mesh stitch on the top and bottom, and then that way I can still use this for the vest, because I don't know where else I want to use this granny square, but I just don't know where. So I'm thinking of this being the back panel of the vest, and then the rest of the vest will be made with these types of granny squares. I'm gonna do that, but I'm not sure if I'm liking this color palette right here. It's not bad, it's pretty, but I'm gonna see if I can come up with anything else before I take this apart. And then if I think of something better, I'm gonna redo the African square and then go ahead and start the basic ones with some cool color palettes as well. This is so random, but I think it's cute and sad that the bees that are outside right now, they keep hitting the window and like face planting into it. And like I feel bad because I know they don't know what a window is, or like because it's see-through, they expect it to be more sky that they're just flying through, but in reality they just keep hitting the window. So I wanna get it on camera. There we go. Hopefully it's not painful for them. I know it is for birds, but they seem strong. I went into Procreate and played around with the different colors that I had for the African flowers, as well as the basic granny squares, and decided on a palette I enjoyed. So going back to my original plan, I took out the 9 squares for the back panel and instead decided to do the 1 African flower granny square for the back and just build on it until it's wide enough. Then add to the top and bottom of the square to make the length as long as needed. I then went ahead and redid the African flower granny square and began to build on it so that it'll be big enough for the back panel. While I did this, I listened to albums that were on my listen to soon list. Here is what I have for the African flower granny square. I am so happy about the colors that I chose. This is so beautiful to me. Like, I put it to my chest like this earlier. This could be a really cute top. Like, just take like 3 rows off and just like add a tie, and that'd be really cute. And I feel like I might do that at some point in the future. What I did to figure out the size for this is I basically measured this basic granny square that I'm going to be doing for the front and the sides, and it came out to be 5 by 5 inches. And I had originally planned to do 3 of these for the back panel, which would make 15 inches for the back. And so all I did was continued making rows until this went up to 15 inches, but then it stopped at this green one, and I wanted this orange to be the border for the entire vest. So I decided to add 2 more, and this whole thing went up to 17 by 17 inches. I'm gonna double check that real quick. Okay, so it's 17 by 17 like I said. And now what I'm gonna do is add a couple of rows to the top and to the bottom just to get this to the length that I want it to. I don't want this vest to be super long, and if it does stop here, I think this might be okay. I'll probably add 2 rows to the top, 2 rows to the bottom, and then that's gonna be enough for the back, and whatever that length is gonna be the length that I'll try to match with the granny squares. So I'll probably do, like I said in my little breakdown, I'm probably gonna do 4 granny squares, 4 on this side, 4 on that side, 2 granny squares for the little armpit area, and then have this in the back. So yeah, I'm just gonna do 2 rows on top of this and 2 rows on the bottom, and then get to work on the basic granny squares. For the 2 rows on the top and bottom, all I did was attach my yarn to the corner gap section, chain 2, and then worked double crochets down the row until I reached the next corner gap section. Once I reached that area, I added my next color, chained 1, turned my work, and repeated working double crochets down the row until the end corner gap. I then chained 1, cut the yarn, and pulled to secure. Once the back panel was complete, I got to work on the basic granny squares, which went by pretty quickly. I finished one side of the vest squares, but was scared of running out of the border color, which I only had a little bit left of. So I decided to take a little break and go to the store for some snacks, and that took 2 hours, sadly, due to me choosing the worst time to leave. But after I got back, I went ahead and finished the other side of the front panel. I was so close, but in the end, I ran out of the yarn like I thought I was going to. So I am either going to finish this with this. It's like the closest I could get. And then I have one more square that I need to do. So I'm thinking of just choosing between one of these as the border and then figuring it out as I go. Here is all of the squares all completed. I have them placed in all the sections that they're going to be at. So these are going to be on the side, these will be on the side, and these are going to be the front panels, and then this is the back, of course. And so now all I have to do is attach all of these squares together. And then once those are attached together, and then I'm gonna see if I have to add any more rows to the top or bottom of the back panel. And if I do have to do that, I'm gonna take the last rows off of each side so I can add more like pattern to it, and then on the last row, I'll reattach this color. To attach the squares together, all I did was take my tapestry needle and a long piece of yarn and first made sure the two squares were on the wrong side and were aligned. I then went into the front loop of both of the squares and pulled my yarn through, then repeated this back and forth all the way until the other end of the square. When they're connected, they look like this. So I finished attaching all of the squares together, like to each other, the basic granny squares, not to the back. Like as you can see, there's stitch markers here holding it up. And I bended one back because it was just too long and it was gonna make me have to add more rows to the back. But when I folded it and then did the stitch markers like this is like a perfect length for me. So what I'm gonna do is take these squares off that I folded back, and then I'm gonna take 2 rows from the top and 2 rows from the bottom, and then attach it right there and right there. Yeah, so I'm gonna do all of that and then attach everything tomorrow. So I went ahead and pulled out the extra yarn that I used to sew the squares onto each other and took off the top square from each front panel, and then took off the 2 rows on the top and front of the back panel. The next day I went ahead and attached the panels together by first laying out the back panel with the wrong side facing up, and then the front panel right next to it with the wrong side up as well, making sure the 2 side squares are the ones that are going to be sewed to the back panel. I seamed it together the same way I seamed the squares together earlier, and once the sides were attached, I turned the vest over and then folded the flaps to where both of the right sides of the panels were touching, and then sewed the top squares to the back panel. I had to fold it a bit so that I could really sew it the way that I wanted to, but it wasn't too difficult or anything. Once that was done, I turned it right side out and then got ready to do the border. The last part of the vest I have to do is add some little borders around, like for the arm sections, the front and the bottom. For the front section, there's many ways that I could do it. Like I can add buttons, I could add a little tie, I could leave it as it is. For this one in particular, I'm thinking of doing a tie. I was gonna do some buttons, but I tried it on and it's not like wide enough to be able to look good with the buttons, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna add a tie so it kind of just pulls it slightly inwards, but not to the point where it kind of like looks like I'm forcing it to be closed and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and make all the little borders that I need to do and then go ahead and make a tie. For the border, all I did was 1 row of single crochet around, making sure to switch my color in the middle of the collar section so that the opposite side would be a different color. After, I went ahead and continued to do the bottom of the vest, switching colors for half of the bottom and then switching again for the rest of it. For the front tie, I used the opposite color in the middle of the front and chained 30. After, I chained 1 more, then cut the yarn and pulled to secure. I repeated this on the opposite side. Then I made the same 1 row of single crochet on each of the arms, weaved in all of my ends, and then my vest was complete. Here is what the vest looks like on. I tried to style it to look like a 70s outfit. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I do know that I do not like it at all. But I'll show you the vest real quick and then I'm gonna take this off. It came out really, really cute. This is what the back looks like. It's my favorite part of the vest. It's very comfortable under the arms. Like at first when I was making it, I was scared that the underarm part would be a bit too tight, but it's literally perfect. I love the colors that I chose for this. The colors are so beautiful, and it's one of my favorite pieces now. Okay, so I took off the shirt and I think I like this a lot better. I still didn't really style it differently, but I feel like it was just the shirt that was making it like not really for me. But anyways, like I said, I really, really love this vest. It's really cute. I'm so happy I went with the African flower granny square for the back. I definitely want to make a couple of more of these in different styles and lengths. At first, while I was planning this, I originally was thinking to make like a maxi vest, just have it go all the way down to maybe my ankles or something. But I tend to make a lot of things very long and rarely anything cropped. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a cropped vest instead. So this is what it looks like, and I'm really happy with how it came out. For the halter top, I was thinking of using this yarn. It's not as like bright as the colors that I was using for the vest, but I still wanted to like do something with it because I like the gradient and like the burnt orange of it. But I went ahead and tested it off camera, and I don't really like how it looks for this specific theme. So instead, I'm thinking of using some of the colors that I used for the vest earlier and maybe adding some colors like this one or maybe some purples. So I'm gonna go ahead and play around with the colors and see what I come up with. Once I chose what colors I was gonna do, I went ahead and started the halter top by first creating a slip knot and chaining 4. I then slip stitched into the first stitch of the row and chained 4. This chain 4 counts as a double crochet plus a chain. Then in the next little gap in the middle, I added 3 double crochets. After, I chained 1 and added 3 more double crochets. Then I chained 1 and added 1 more double crochet. With the same color, I chained 4, which again counts as 1 double crochet and a chain. For the second row after turning my work, I worked 3 double crochets into the chain space from the previous row. Then, without chaining, I worked into the middle gap with 3 double crochets. After, I chained 1 and added 3 more double crochets into that same gap space. After, with no chaining, I worked 3 double crochets into the next space. Then I chained 1 and worked 1 double crochet into the last stitch of the row to make sure that the sides are even. For the third row, I added my new color and chained 4, then turned my work. The rows are worked the exact same way each time, with first working 3 double crochets into the open space from the previous row. This is done in each side space. Once I get to the middle space, that's the only time that I'm supposed to add 3 double crochets, a chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets. Doing this makes the project larger so I can actually fit my torso. Then for the other side of the row, I just worked regular 3 double crochets into each space. At the end, after the last set of 3 double crochets, I chain 1 and work 1 double crochet into the actual stitch. And this process repeats until it's as large as I wanted it to be. While working on the halter top, I watched a bunch of old colors videos, which I used to watch so much when it first got popular. Once the halter top was wide enough for my liking, I worked up row 16 until the middle section, and instead of working it like normal, I attached my next color, chained 4, turned my work, and worked down the same side like normal. Once I got to the end, I chained 1, cut the yarn, and pulled to secure. Then for the other side, I reattached my yarn to the end by attaching it to the actual stitch, chaining 4, and then working into the gaps like normal. Once I got to the top, instead of working in the middle, I again attached my next color, chained 4, turned my work, and worked down the row like normal. For the bottom of the halter top, I attached the last color I used, chained 1, and worked 1 single crochet into every stitch I could, just so I can clean up the bottom a bit. Once I got to the end of the row, I chained 61, which creates a drawstring to keep the back tied. After, I cut off a tail and then went to attach the same color of the other corner of the bottom and then again chained 61. Lastly, I created another drawstring by chaining 131. With this drawstring, I weaved it into the first gap at the top right, then the middle, and then the left gap. Doing this will keep the top up, and all I would have to do is tie it around my neck. To tie the drawstrings in the back, all I'd have to do is push them into the gaps that are available, making sure they kind of zigzag. Then after maybe 3 gaps, I just tied the drawstring like normal and then it's secured. I ended up doing a total of 17 rows for the halter top, and after weaving in all my ends, it was complete. Here is the second piece that I finished, which is this cute halter top. There was different variations that I was thinking about doing for this. Like at first I was gonna do one where there's a base and then 2 sections that go like that, or maybe crossed. But then I decided to just do this type of neckline instead. I haven't done a top like this before, and I really think it's incredibly cute. I can do so many different types of color combinations for this, and it takes only 1 day to make, not even the whole day either. So this is really fun, and I think this is a great project for beginners as well. Like all you have to do is just do the same thing over and over again until it's big enough to fit your torso, and then you're good to go. I paired them with these super huge bell bottoms. I'll show a little clip because I can't lift my leg right now because they're very sore from the gym. I don't know if I like this top more or the vest. But yeah, this is the halter top. I think it's really cute, and I think it fits the 70s theme very well. I was just planning the colors for the newsboy cap, and I was just thinking how I don't really want to do it anymore just because I have a ton of crochet hats, and yeah, they're fun and easy to make, but with the limited amount of orange yarn that I have, I feel like I'd rather preserve that yarn to make the blanket that I really want to make rather than a hat that I'm probably only going to wear when I have braids in my hair. Maybe if I finish the blanket and I have more orange yarn left over, I can either reconsider making the hat or just figuring out another 70s project to do, but for now I'm gonna go ahead and start on the blanket. Here are some of the color combos that I was thinking of for the blanket. I realized I put a bit too much green in it rather than orange, so I'm gonna adjust it a little bit. So like maybe instead of the green here, I can put orange there. Also, I just want to say that this isn't like the way that the blanket's gonna go. This was just me playing around with different color combos. I really like this one. This one's cool. This one I like just to have a little variety. And I could do one green one, probably this one. But then I do want the majority of them to have the orange. So I'm probably gonna mess around with these and then begin working on the blanket. I went ahead and started working on the first granny square, which I used a tutorial from Stitchin' with Liz for. It was way more steps than I initially thought, but I was just happy that it was coming out really cute. Here is the first square done, and oh my gosh, this is the first time I ever made a granny square that like you have to flip around and do so many different steps for, and it's a lot, and it does take up a lot of my yarn. The back looks pretty cool, like with all the flipping and stuff. It looks like a sun, like it's really pretty. But yeah, this is the first granny square. I am not sure how many I want to do for the blanket just yet, but I am just worried about me running out of yarn, so we're gonna go ahead and see what color combinations I want to work with. I did the first one that I showed right here. I did this one just now, and it came out very pretty, and I'm gonna just go ahead and go through them, and once I have enough, I'll put it together. After doing the first granny square, I took a break and played some Persona 5 until I was ready to get back to work. At first, I wasn't really messing with Persona, but after playing it for a while, I'm literally in love with the game. I usually don't like turn-based games, but this one was pretty fun, and after this, I'm gonna go ahead and finish playing Nier. I went back to making the squares, which after timing it took around 25 to 30 minutes each. I listened to some more new albums while I worked, which helped pass the time since each album was usually 40 minutes long. So I've been been using this blanket to kind of measure out how many squares that I would need to finish a blanket that is a size that I would like to use. And after doing all of these squares, which took roughly about 30 minutes each, I was kind of getting a bit tired and I wanted to figure out if there was a different project I could do with all of these squares instead of making a whole bunch more, because again, they do take 30 minutes each, and after one I'm just like, oh man, I'm kind of tired of this. So I actually picked up one of my pillows from the living room and I was like, let me just see something. And so I was placing them on there and I realized that I only need 9 squares for each side for this pillow. And so if I do 4 more, I can just make a pillow cover for this and call it a day. Because I don't really use this pillow. I have 2 other ones like this and they're just sitting and taking space. But if I maybe transform it, then it would be nicer to have out. So I think that's what I'm gonna do instead of the blanket. After reaching a total of 18 squares, which is 9 squares for each panel, I first organized the squares in the order I liked and then turned them with the wrong side facing up and then stitched them together 2 squares at a time. To stitch them together, all I did was take my tapestry needle and a long piece of yarn and first go into the bottom front loops of both of the squares. I then worked back and forth between the squares, only working in the front loops. Once I reached the end of the 2 squares, I took the 2 squares above them and went ahead and sewed into them as well. Once the squares were connected vertically, I went ahead and did the same to connect each column together horizontally until the first panel was complete, then repeated this for the second panel. I then took the pillow and placed the panels onto it with the right sides facing out and took my orange color as a border color that will connect the 2 squares together. I went ahead and attached the orange to the corner of the granny square panels and began to half double crochet them together. A bit later, I moved the pillow since it was a bit in the way, but once I got to the last side of the half double crochets, I inserted the pillow back into the case and finished half double crocheting down the row. At the end of the row, I slip stitched into the first stitch, chained 1, cut the yarn, and pulled to secure. Just in case I wanted to take the cover off for washing purposes or something, I just stuffed the tail into one of the granny squares instead of weaving it in, just so I don't have to cut anything or have a hard time unweaving it. After I weaved in all my other ends and the blanket turned pillow was complete. The last piece I made was this flower pillow. It was originally going to be a blanket, but then I was like, no, I'm kind of getting tired of making all these squares. And thankfully I had enough to put it on a pillow that I have that's just always sitting on the couch. And it was actually incredibly easy to put together. This was the first time I made a pillowcase. Usually I would just make a pillow with scrap yarn and extra cotton and stuff, but this one is just you throw the pillow in there and you crochet on all the sides to close it and it's done. I tried to make sure that the orange theme was going along, but I feel like after a while there was only so many combinations I could do with the orange. Thank you so much for watching this little challenge of mine. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know which piece was your favorite in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!